However, there is some good news out there, and there's nothing wrong with talking about good news from St. Louis once in a while. As you may or may not know, I am part of the Great Rivers Greenway Board of Directors. Judge Steve Ellman, the county executive, St. Charles County executive, Steve Ellman, asked me to sit on the board, and I think I've been on there 2 or 3 years. I represent St. Charles, and this is an organization that is in charge of the funds for the Arch as well as bike paths in the county, the city, and St. Charles. And there's some talk about a Chouteau Greenway. And so we've asked somebody from Great Rivers Greenway to come on the show and to sort of shed some light on all this good news about the Chouteau Greenway. Seth Treptow, Communications Manager with Great Rivers Greenway. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, absolute pleasure.
All right, so we've heard about the Chouteau Greenway. It's been in the news, but most people didn't read the story, and they kind of heard about it. But so what is the Chouteau Greenway?
Well, Chouteau Greenway is envisioned to be a connection between two of our region's greatest jewels, the Gateway Arch and Forest Park. Between those, there's lots of great, amazing little pockets. You have cultural destinations like Grand Center. You have innovation districts like the Cortex, and you have job centers such as BJC. And there are all these little islands, and so we're looking at the Chouteau Greenway as a way to connect those and provide a bikeable and walkable way to get between Forest Park and the Arch.
So you want to create sort of independent bike paths dedicated to walking, running, biking.
Yeah, you know, there's
scootering.
Absolutely, whatever you might want to do,
right.
Whether it's walking or rolling. Also with wheelchairs and
strollers and whatever else, right?
Accessibility is a huge part about getting around from point A to point B, and people want to be able to do that in a safe, convenient way. And so we look at the greenways that we construct as a way to meet that end.
Right. And so there are greenways being built throughout the St. Louis metropolitan area, and you can go to the website to find out more. But this is a sort of specialty project because it is in the inner city. It's harder, it's more difficult. These are already existing homes and roads and everything else, so it's much harder to build a bike path in the city than it is in, say, St. Charles.
Oh, no doubt. When you're working within the built environment, there's already large buildings, homes, roads, sidewalks, things that you have to work with,
right.
and all of those require land. If we're going to build a 12-foot path of any distance, we have to have control of that land we're working on. We do not use eminent domain,
right.
Which is a common misconception of our organization. So everything we do has to be through either purchase or easement or permission.
Right.
So when you're looking at one of our projects down in South County, Cliff Cave County Park, that's being constructed entirely within a county park. We don't have county parks that extend from Forest Park to the Arch, so
right.
we have to work with the land that we can acquire.
Okay, so that's the idea of the Chouteau Greenway. Now, you have instructed a couple of teams to come up with, and really given them sort of just their own imagination. What do you guys want to do, right?
Yeah, so this started, actually the process started very quickly. We had some partners, private entities, nonprofit organizations all kind of came and joined our effort, and we decided the best way to get the ball rolling and to make a big splash and get a lot of momentum going quickly is to have a design competition. So we had 19 teams from around the world submit their credentials for this competition. 4 were selected,
right.
And just a few weeks ago we put those designs out to the world so people could check out the giant display boards and their design proposal reports. And let us know what they think about them. But each one's kind of taken their own approach. We provided them with a set of goals that we wanted the project to meet. We provided them with a general project area where things could be done. And then after that, they were left to their own devices with a little bit of guidance along the way from a technical advisory group and a community advisory committee.
And so now you're in the public discussion phase, right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to get as many people come and let me hear what you're thinking. Now's the time to complain, right?
Absolutely, because projects like this succeed or have the greatest level of success when people buy into them, when people are interested in them, when people contribute their time and interest and thought. Right now is the perfect time. We have 4 amazing designs. Each one have their own strengths. Each one have their own weaknesses, and it's up to the public to decide which one it really suits what they want. Now, there'll be a jury at the end that makes the final decision, but public input's going to be a large portion of what they consider.
Right. Don't say when the money is in the till and they're about to break ground, say, I don't like that crosswalk there, right? Now's the time to say you don't like the crosswalk.
Now is the best time to say something along those lines.
Right, yeah. Okay. Now, I have not, back up for a second. this jury, explain who is on the jury who's going to ultimately decide which plan we go with.
We have an amazing jury, and you can actually learn all about it if you go to our website that we have for this project, ChouteauGreenway.org. But they have a variety of backgrounds. Some are landscape architects, some are city planners, some are artists. But they all have come together, and some are local and some are actually nationally renowned.
Right.
But they've all come together with this project in mind. And we have a competition manager, Don Stasny. He's actually the person who ran the competition for the Gateway Arch competition,
Sure.
or the City Arch River competition. And he has said this is the best jury he's assembled.
Right. Yeah, I still want it on the record that I wanted softball fields at the Arch, and I didn't get them, and now I'm sitting on the board. So even though I spoke, I didn't get what I wanted, but that's a whole other ivissue. Okay, so the 4 plans, they're on the website, right?
Yes.
grg.org?
If you go to greatriversgreenway.org or ChouteauGreenway.org,
Right.
whichever is easier to type in,
Right.
you can find them. We also have been putting them all around town. So we have displays at like the Schlafly branch of the St. Louis Library, St. Louis City Hall, various different places. You can go and see the display boards and check them out and fill out a survey and
Right.
let us know what you think the strengths and weaknesses of each one are.
Am I allowed to say publicly which different plans I like or not?
I can't stop you from doing anything.
Okay. Well, I know, but I like. I mean, they're 4 very different plans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's extraordinary how different they are.
Right, and if you just look at the boards, so we have each team put together a set of 4 3-foot by 4-foot panels, and so basically it's a 4-foot by 12-foot display. Just looking at those, you see the differences. But then you go through the design reports, which are 120 to 200 pages each, and kind of really delve into the details, and you see a lot of care and thought has gone into them. But each approaching it from a different perspective.
Right. Yeah. I like and I'm not saying I like one over the other because I'm not on the jury. I guess I'm only going to vote on whether or not ultimately whichever plan goes through. I ultimately vote on that. Right.
You'll have input. It's not a vote,
Right.
but you can let us know what you.
I mean, as a board member, I ultimately got to.
Right. Yeah.
Vote to sign off on the whole thing, I guess. But I mean, the one where it's got the bike path like cantilevered over the Missouri River.
Yeah.
Right?
Over the Mississippi?
Yeah, over the Mississippi, right? Or the other one where they're playing basketball underneath the highway and stuff?
Yeah, they have found unique ways to use existing spaces. So, recreational areas underneath the highway bridges. Several found interesting ways to do little excursions over the Mississippi. They actually had a lot of fascination with the MacArthur Bridge, and
Right,
so there's a lot of work and projects around there.
And it's not a straight shot, right? I mean, it sort of encompasses different neighborhoods and sort of brings everybody together and weaves a bike path throughout St. Louis.
People and things don't exist in linear lines.
Right.
So to make those valuable connections, it's
Right.
going to have to meander. And we want to make connections to the north and south because there's very vibrant neighborhoods just to either side of that corridor.
And imagine living in a world where you could take a bike path without having to take your life in your hands on a road from Forest Park to the Arch and back and down to Soulard and up towards Delmar and everywhere else, right? That'd be a great
It would
day.
be. And now that you're looking with just launched this week of a bike share in the city.
Right. Line Bike and Ofro.
It's going to be a great way for even tourists of the city to check things out.
So let me ask you this question. What happens if the jury or the panel of jurists love one part of one plan, but they love another part of another plan? Can they combine them? Can they mix and match?
To an extent. The jury will be selecting the winner of the competition by the end of this month.
Okay.
But there will then be 2 additional months for refinement. So the jury's going to be able to go back to that ultimate winning team and say, we really love all these things that you've done, but the public and in our opinion, there's a few things you're lacking. And maybe here's an idea that you might want to consider. And so you got 2 months to go back and reconfigure what you're thinking about and see if you can work it in. And so they'll come back with their final design in June, the winning team. And that's what we will start working towards making a reality.
When will the shovel first go into the ground, and when will this Chouteau Greenway be finished?
Those are very tough questions to answer.
That's why I asked them. I asked the tough questions.
It really depends upon the land and the routes they decide to take and which ways we can find permission and use one way or the other.
Once the plan is set, then you have to go to work, right? Then the heavy lifting begins.
That's the tough part. Everyone thinks that once you have a plan in place, you can just roll in the excavator.
Right.
And
I
make
mean,
stuff
it might
happen.
be 5, 6, 7 years.
Very, very likely. Once those plans come in, our team will start evaluating, and we'll break it into buildable and fundable chunks, as we do with most of our projects. We try. It's very rare that we can look at a project and build it holistically all in one piece.
Right.
You have to do it in small amounts and consider, the budget and taxpayers and keeping, projects going in other places.
Right.
So we will look at it and see where are the places that we have the greatest impact to be able to make connections happen. We know just from members of our design oversight committee, like the city foundry project, the Armory District,
right.
They are very interested in having some form of path through their developments because it attracts employees.
Sure.
And so, in those situations, if there's additional assistance or things we can work on, and if they're willing partners with land, we may be able to start putting things together sooner than later.
I will say this, as we sort of talk about this, it has been an education for me sitting on this board, because you would think, how hard is it to build a bike path?
Well, yeah.
But it's really hard, because you've got warring factions from this town and that town. You have this person's backyard, you got that person's front yard. You got to worry about the bats in the trees. You got to worry about the gnats in this tree, the birds in this tree, right? The grass, the road, the overpass, the underpass. Then you've got the lighting, and then you've got the gas line and the electrical line, and it's really hard to build 1 mile of a bike path.
Well, and what makes it even more difficult, you have to look at it beyond just the cyclist use or people who are just going to be walking. If you actually wanted to make this a accessible path for all users of ages and abilities, there's ADA compliance that comes into place. So
Right.
where you have like a maximum amount of grade you can climb, and you have to build in rest spots along the way
Right.
to make it convenient. And so if you could make a path, there are rails to trail projects around the country that have taken advantage of decommissioned rail lines.
Katy Trail and so on and so forth. Right, yeah.
But in the city, we don't have those as much. So
Right.
we have to get creative, and we have to compromise, and we have to work with partners. And sometimes it's easier than other times.
And then, what happens when the storm comes and the bridge is out, or, somebody vandalizes the bench, and do you want to leave the bench vandalized? And then you have to go and get, and who's in charge of that, and who's going to pay for that? And it is really very hard. And so as Peter Sortino said, he's glad I'm on this board when he was alive. He was glad I was on this board, because finally somebody from the media will learn firsthand how hard it is, and as opposed to just sitting behind the microphone and yelling at us for not fixing things, you get a firsthand education as to why it's so hard to do things. So. Yeah. I don't know why I said that.
Well, it's a challenge, but it's a worthwhile one. And
basically,
we're
you're
happy
saying
to tackle
us
it.
in the media have no idea how hard it is.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. You probably have some idea.
I now. Nobody else does, but I do. Seth Treptow is the communications manager for Great Rivers Greenway. Okay, so now's the public input time. Where can people go to see these? Online and in person?
Best place to go is our website, choutaugreenway.org. We have a list of all the various places where the displays are up and available for people to check out.
Right.
And we all have various different events. You can go and learn. For instance, this weekend is Earth Day. You can come to our table out at Earth Day. We'll be happy to talk to you about it and as much as we can. But then the displays, or all the exhibits, are available online. Now, mind you, they are hefty files.
Yeah.
So, I'd recommend looking at it on a PC, not your smartphone.
Right.
But if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of them.
And then when's the Mary Meacham thing? Well, I love that thing.
That's coming up May 5th, I believe.
Okay, yeah. I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be out of the country. But that Mary Meacham, the last stop on the Underground Railroad, is just north of the Arch.
Yep, right along the Riverfront Trail. It's
Yeah, this side was slavery, that side was freedom, and they waited there for the boat to take them to freedom.
Yeah, and this year's going to be a really interesting event. They are, every year they kind of profile a different era in St. Louis history. This year they're actually going to be talking about the 1904 World's Fair, or as what they're referring to as the Unfair Fair. A lot of St. Louis has this warm place in our heart for the World's Fair. We have the pavilion, and we have the bird cage, and we think about this as this high water mark in our society. The ice cream cone debuted there,
right?
But there are some very disturbing dark sides to it when it came to people or to minority cultures, and so this the fair or the festival this year is going to kind of focus on that.
Yeah, history is an interesting thing.
It is.
Seth Treptow, you're always welcome here. Thanks for the good work. Now get back to the office and stop lollygagging.